It's nearly a year since 71 people were killed in the Grenfell tower fire. The judge-led inquiry into what happened will start taking evidence next week. But this morning, a separate inquiry into building regulations will be published. And the BBC understands it won't recommend an outright ban on flammable cladding and insulation, despite demands from Grenfell survivors and safety experts. We can speak to David Wilton, who's a member of the Welsh Government's Fire Safety Advisory Group, which was set up after the fire. Good morning.
Good morning.
Now, for context, you've got two hats on here. You're on this advisory group because of what you do on a day-to-day basis, which you should probably explain for us.
I'm the director for TPAS Cymru. We work with social landlords, tenants all across Wales, getting tenants and landlords working together and for the better of housing.
I'd imagine you'd have been speaking to people who are pretty frightened at the best of times, perhaps, since what happened at Grenfell last year.
Yes and no. I think social housing acted very quickly in Wales to reassure tenants. And there's some wonderful work from Swansea Council, Newport City Homes, to knock doors, get groups going, and they acted quickly as well to put in things like sprinkler systems and things. So social housing, I think, acted quickly and are still doing work to improve the fire situations there.
Is the picture different for private housing then?
I think it's been slower there because it's more complicated as to who pays, and where the liability lies. So yes, there's been a lot of good work for things like the fire service going in and reassessing buildings and looking at them, but I think it's going to be a slower to see major work and improvements in the private sector. It could take many years. OK,
that's the picture in Wales. This report today that won't recommend an outright ban on flammable cladding and insulation. What do you make of that?
I'm disappointed by that. It feels like maybe the manufacturers have had some influence with Dame Judith Hackitt, and I think we can't be putting material on buildings that have some combustibility to it. It just doesn't feel. We must have learned lessons from Grenfell, but it's only a recommendation from the review. It's up to Welsh Government to implement policy, and I'd like to see Welsh Government go a little bit further than possibly what we're going to see in the report.
And I'm playing a kind of a layman's devil's advocate here. You'll know more about this than I will. Is there a sense that you don't need to ban them outright because the tests and the safety procedures you bring in will in effect get you to the same place?
But it's still, again, they're not going to ban desktop. We believe they're not going to ban desktop assessments, and that means where you look at previous reports and different materials and you make a calculation. You can't be testing these things live together, whether it's the cladding and the insulation. And we were hoping there would also be a ban on desktop publishing, it's called. I won't bore you with the details of it, but that's not going to be there either, we believe. And I just have this concern that the materials going forward won't be learning the lessons from Grenfell.
I guess the devil's in the detail, isn't it? When we see the report, we'll know exactly what testing they're hoping to put forward. Let's say this all comes to pass and you're still not happy with what's suggested. Where do you go from there? Well,
obviously within Wales, it's with the Welsh Government, so they implement their policy. They have different regulations, as we know, with devolution. So I would like to see Wales take a much more firmer position maybe than what we suspect is going to be in the recommendations.
Yeah, because the recommendations will cover England only, won't they? But obviously potential ramifications for the Welsh Government to follow. I mean, could they, from your understanding and your work with them, could they, is there the inclination to go further and to outright ban that type of cladding and insulation here?
It's perfectly within their powers, and I would like to see that. I think in Wales we have a healthier working relationship with housing associations, local authorities and Welsh Government, and I believe we can get around a table and have these discussions and sort it out. Yeah.
OK, so it's waiting to see what happens and taking it from there.
Yeah.
OK, good to speak to you, David. Thank you very much indeed. David Wilton, who's a member of the Welsh Government's Fire Safety Advisory Group.
It is coming up to 23 minutes past 7. This week is